Mayor Day, thanks for sitting down with us. I appreciate it. I know it's kind of late. We wanted to get a hold of you earlier, but we had the big debate, so we want to make sure we kept everything in front of us. And you're keeping the election in front of you really close here. This is going to air on Tuesday or Wednesday, and we got about a week. So how are you feeling about your campaign thus far?
Well, let me say, Ryan, first, it's my pleasure. And
thank you very much.
And I think, you know, whether it's late in the election cycle or not, it's important because people are paying more and more attention, I think, as you get closer to Election Day, which is November 5th. So how am I feeling about our campaign? I'm feeling great. You know, I went into this with a plan. I went into this with certain objectives, you know, within certain things that we wanted to hit, goals in terms of fundraising, doors knocked, volunteers recruited, emails added to the list, you know, interactions with voters, and we have exceeded all of our expectations. So I'm feeling very good.
One of the biggest things that people kind of are saying as we're going into this thing is, does Jake Day want to be the mayor long term, or does Jake Day want to be a lieutenant governor or a state senator or, you know, a representative someday? That seems to be, and I don't know if that's necessarily a knock on you as a human being, but there's this idea that you have greater political aspirations and you won't fulfill a term for mayor. So that's something I want to get off the table immediately, or at least talk about maybe your political aspirations moving forward.
Well, Ryan, let me acknowledge that that's a reasonable discussion to have, and let me also say that that was my opponent's planned gotcha moment, and I'm flattered that he thinks I've done a good enough job here that someone would pick me to serve on the statewide level, somebody who's running for governor. But that's not my intent. My intent is to run for mayor and serve as mayor. I've loved this job enough that I want to keep doing it. I don't think we're finished. I don't think we're finished with the things that we've started. And I was, you know, it's funny, I was brushing my teeth this morning thinking about this. And I was thinking about.
Hey, I'm honored.
Well, you know, 4 more years. The reality is we've got 2 years of construction on Fitzwater that is just starting right now. We got a year left of construction on Main Street. We've got buildings just getting started. You know, Vernon Powell today, construction started. You know, there's a lot of things I want to see. I might need 8 or 12 more years, honestly. So we'll see. But at the end of the day, I want to serve the people of Salisbury, and I think I can do that best as mayor. Could I do it as lieutenant governor or governor? Maybe, but I know I can do it as mayor. There's something special about this job, and there's two things that I identify that make it special for me. One is this is my hometown. I love this place. This is not a game. This is not some job. I'm not, you know, unemployed and looking for a gig and realized, hey, they're going to give a pay raise to that next guy. Although I've given up that 50% pay raise that's going into a scholarship fund if I'm elected. But this is not a gig. So this is my hometown. I'm passionate about it. I care about it. I'm 100% in. And the second piece is, in the military, in the world I come from, the Army world, officers gravitate either towards staff jobs or command jobs. I gravitate toward command jobs. I'm a executive. That's just in my DNA. I want to lead, and not to be in charge of people or boss people around, but because I believe I can make decisions quickly, I can envision a future and help a team execute. And that's what we've done with the city. So here I've got this job that is it's my hometown, and it's the executive job. It's the chief executive job. It's the perfect job for me. So this is where I thrive. This is where I live. This is where I succeed.
Yeah, I just want to build on that. I hate to kind of start with the negatives, but sometimes I feel like it's easier just to get those off the table before we can talk about policy and things like that. But another assertion is that you've been born and bred to be a politician. You know, the thing that your opponent says is that you've been trying to be a mayor or some kind of big-time politician since you were 7 years old. So is that the case? Have you always wanted to be a politician?
I've never wanted to be a politician. I don't think that word was in my vocabulary until, you know, I was old enough to, you know, I was in U.S. history class. But I've always admired public leaders, those who give of themselves and want to be in service to their community. So, you know, I talk frequently. You know, my opponent's not from here. He doesn't know this community, but one of the things he has heard, because he listens to what I say, is that 7-year-old Jake Day was at North Salisbury Elementary School and in the TAD program, the Thinking and Doing program, with Mrs. Rowe and Mrs. Trivets, and what they said to me was, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I did see this moment where it was like, I want to be the mayor of Salisbury. But, you know, that little boy forgot about that for a while. And I studied architecture and urban planning and join the Army and spend some time away from here. But I came back because I love this place. I want to raise my kids here, and now I'm getting to raise my kids here. And so I don't think I was born and bred to be a politician. In fact, the person who was probably most disappointed when I got into elected life was my dad and my parents. I think my parents, the way they looked at it was they knew Salisbury from the 90s and the 2000s. And that's a divisive politics. That's a pretty nasty politics where people did not treat each other with respect, where the council and the mayor were pitted against one another, where it was very negative. And that didn't do any favors to our economy, our crime situation, or our community. And it was only that when we started to get out of those things, out of those behaviors, that we were able to achieve success on so many other fronts.
Well, it's funny you bring up the relationship between the county and the mayor's office, because right now it doesn't seem like you're gelling with the county executive. It seems like maybe that's what led to the rise of your opponent, Wayne King, in this instance.
Well, very well may have.
Do you regret maybe some of the interactions you've had with the county and maybe specifically the county executive, Bob Culver, and how do you plan to make that more beneficial for Salisbury moving forward?
Yeah, not at all, not at all. I think we've stood firm. I think I come from a long line of mayors, Paul Martin and Barry Tillman and Jim Ireton and myself, who have all had to stand firm to protect the citizens of Salisbury. They're the only citizens left in the state of Maryland, other than a few and a very small number in Kent County, that are being double taxed for services that they're not receiving. It is unfair, it's unacceptable, and on that, it's one of the few things that my opponent and I agree on. As shared in the debate. But I think what's really important to understand is that every elected official in Wicomico County stands together, with the exception of one. So I have a great relationship with our 7 county councilmen. I have a great relationship with our sheriff. I have a great relationship with our entire Eastern Shore delegation. I have a great relationship with our state's attorney. I have a great relationship with all 5 members of the city council. It's universal with one exception. But I don't think that means that it's not possible. We have a human relationship. We respect each other. We interact positively. We were just on the plaza, with our arms around each other at a ribbon cutting. We have disagreed on certain subjects, but that disagreement has led to principled positions, ultimately leading to progress on certain fronts. The big thing that we disagreed on was fire service. And my predecessor and his predecessor disagreed on fire service. But we came together ultimately, and we rendered a 7-year disagreement, an expired agreement from 7 years. We rendered that moot. We were able to come together, develop a new plan, a fire service agreement that we signed, and it's a 5-year plan. So a 5-year agreement. So we've got 3 years left in that agreement. And it's no surprise to your viewers that there was also a recent disagreement about alcohol licensing, and we're going to fix that. I've got confidence that the state of Maryland is getting ready to fix that and take that power away from Wicomico County and give it to the city of Salisbury. Every single permit right now to every single business in Salisbury is now issued by the city of Salisbury, 100%. We have consolidated from 7 city and county departments down to 1. They have shortened the timeline. A building permit now takes 7 days or less with the city of Salisbury. A plan review takes 30 days or less for us to review. We have shortened the timeline, we've made it easier, and it's led to $200 million in construction over the last 4 years. The proof is in the pudding. We have worked hard to ensure that we are more business friendly, and we've created that environment. We've got a reputation that is fantastic now. When I go before developers and commercial real estate development folks, they are patting us on the back. They're asking, how do we get involved? How do we get in Salisbury? You got to think, it was only a few short years ago that it was a decade ago that all of the national home builders left our area. Just now, they've come back. They're back in our community. D.R. Horton, Ryan Homes, they're building once again. We got homes being built in our city. It's a beautiful thing.
One of the things that kind of maybe came out of those disagreements with the county executive is this discussion about the numbers with the folk festival. And we talk, it's just not just numbers with the folk festival, it's numbers across the board, whether it be crime or business, whatever. Well, how do you reassure the citizens that the numbers that you're getting are, honest or truthful? Because, your opponent is saying that he only saw 4,000 people at the folk festival one day, and you're saying there's 25,000. I mean, there is a very large gap. So how do you reassure people?
Yeah, the bottom line is one person's just saying things with no factual basis. The other is I'm not saying anything from my perspective. It's not about my perspective. We have to live from data. We have to make decisions based on data. Good leaders make decisions based on data. They cannot make decisions based on their feeling or their emotion or their political perspective or their desire, their wish for something to be true. If we have bad figures that reflect poorly on us, we deal with them. We dive into it. We have all sorts of challenges. We have challenges with our poverty rate in our community. We have challenges with our number of renters in our community versus homeowners. We have all sorts of things that we want to address. And oh, by the way, of our 1,280 Part 1 crimes we had by the date of the debate, every single one of those is bad. Yeah. I don't want there to be any crimes. Now, I'm smart enough to acknowledge there will always be crime in our community. However, each of those is a problem. Each of those is a business or a person or a family that is impacted, and we've got to address it. But if I were to just say, well, I want to prove a political point, I want to gain something for me, and I want my own numbers to exist, well, I'd have to ask the police department to stop producing stats. I'd have to ask them to stop reporting to the FBI, a uniform crime report. I'd have to say, I don't want to hear any of that. I instead want my own numbers, which is criminal. And it's not just criminal in a sense of morality or ethics. It's literally criminal. Right. You go to federal prison for that. Federal prison. Right. I mean, that is a crime. If you read, Google it. Google manipulation of crime statistics. You'll read about police chiefs and captains and police officials and government officials and chiefs of staffs and mayors and council members.
So what you're saying is you don't want to go to jail.
I don't. That's
what you're saying.
I don't. So the assertion that people make, like my opponent, the assertion that crime statistics are faked is not only absurd, it's also an accusation that they don't realize is not about politicians. Because when I get crime numbers, when I get attendance figures from a event like the marathon or the National Folk Festival, they're handed to me in PDF form. And that's both a literal and figurative.
Right. You're just citing them from someone else.
They're final. Nobody gives me the opportunity to review these things and say, well, Mayor, what do you think? It doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it only matters what happened. Because I think if you govern in a way where you're leading with what you want to be true, you will fail and you will let people down. Let's put it in a more concrete way.
All right, go ahead.
Let's put it in a more concrete example.
Go for it.
Asphalt. So let's say that we want there to be fewer potholes or more potholes fixed. It's a binary question. Was the pothole filled or was it not?
Right.
Was the pothole filled or was it not? And so what we've got to do is we've got to simply judge ourselves on what we've done.
Right.
And that's why I'm data driven. So it's why we created the Result SBY system, which includes metrics for every single department. My department heads have to stand tall before their peers and report on their success or their failure. And when we have an open conversation, and people don't get beat up, it is not about that. It's not about beating them up. It's about having an honest conversation about, sir, this is why I didn't meet those expectations.
Right.
We're resource limited.
Right.
And maybe we've had too many people out on workers' comp or sick that week or whatever.
Right.
And that's why we couldn't, do X number of miles of storm drain cleaning or X number of miles of paving or cubic feet of paving, or why we couldn't bring crime down that week. We've got too many officers on vacation this month or on FMLA. That's the conversation that executives and leaders are supposed to have. And the mayor's got to drive what they do and the decisions they make based on that information. And if you manipulate that information, I guarantee failure. I guarantee failure for your administration, for your career, for politics. It's all going to fail. And so we have proudly managed based on the facts. And we will continue to do that. My city administration, the non-political folks on there, that's how they operate, and that's how I operate.
I mean, what do you think of the crime in Salisbury? Because that has been his platform, your opponent. That's his #1 thing, is that crime is off the rails in the city of Salisbury. I looked at some of the crime statistics from the FBI that are most recent from 2018. They don't necessarily portray the same image, and that's something I'm going to talk to him about. But it still doesn't paint a rosy picture.
Sure.
So how does Salisbury as a city tackle the crime? And in your opinion, do you think things are that bad here?
Well, no, I don't think things are that bad, and I think, as you said, the FBI figures prove that.
Right.
However, I don't think everything's perfect either. I don't think
Certainly not.
I don't think that any of us should think that rapidly declining crime rates are rosy. Now, that being said, I don't think any of us should claim that a rapidly declining crime rate is a bad thing either. It's a good thing.
Right.
So you got to put things in context. You got to zoom out. And when you zoom out, you say, well, where have we come from and where are we going? And in the trajectory over time, it's wow. We had a peak in the 80s, we had a peak in the 90s, and then we had this major peak. Our highest point was in 2009, 10, and 11. We had this real bad spot, and then it's been on this downward decline ever since. And now 2017, it went up slightly, 2018 down again, but that 17 increase was just an increase over 16, it wasn't like a return to the old days. It was still, the long trend line.
Right.
If you zoom out far enough, the long trend line is good. And we have certainly had crimes that are problematic. In 2015, we had a young man shot and killed in front of the America's Best Value Inn on the north end of Salisbury. I think that changed the lives of so many young people in Salisbury who knew him, who knew Rock, who knew the impact that had on them emotionally, and he was an innocent bystander. He was a victim, a person who was attending a party, had no idea what was happening, didn't see this coming. Didn't see it coming. And some guys made a bad decision, went and got guns and came back and shot at a crowd. And that's before I was in office, but it's still relevant.
Right.
I can take you through every single homicide because I know it. It's tattooed on my heart. I remember every moment of it. I know the domestic violence ones. I know the ones where child abuse resulted in a homicide. I know the ones where it was gang related or drug related. I know every single one of them. And thankfully, we haven't had very many, but I still know them because that's what you got to do. You got to be invested and dive in.
Right.
I believe that level of investment and riding along and being with our officers is precisely why I was able to get 100% of those officers' support when we went after an endorsement, and why I'm confident I'm pleased that I was able to get our firefighters, our police officers endorsement because I'm with them. I stand with them. I work with them every day. Everything they've asked for, I've been able to deliver on. And that's not about favors or trying to make them feel good. It's because they need it to do their job.
Right.
They ought to be confident every time they step out on the street that, Mayor's got my back, Chief's got my back, Colonel's got my back, Major's got my back, all the way down the line. They should be able to know that my captain's got my back, my lieutenants, my sergeants, my corporals got my back. They should know that when they walk out onto the street because what they do is dangerous work.
Well, can I address that?
Yeah,
because I think what he's saying, your opponent, I keep going back to it, but that's the way it is. What he's saying is one of the symptoms is that they're underpaid and that they have an ineffective police chief. Those are his two words.
Right.
And he has a nickname for which I'm not going to give the respect to humor. But there's a nickname. Basically says that Chief Barbara Duncan is ineffective and that we have underpaid officers who only stay 2 to 5 years. Do you feel that's the case, or is that something that you want to address with the underpaid? How do we feel about that?
I think anybody in my position, if they're interested in the politics, would know that probably the most popular public official in our community is Barbara Duncan. So I would say he's reading the room wrong. But that's not surprising. I mean, this is a person who doesn't know our community and is new here, and is tapped into sort of an angry network of people, the blogosphere, and things that our community eschewed long ago. We haven't had the blogs haven't been well read in half a decade. But I understand that anger also has roots in real things, like not wanting there to be crime, which is a perfectly valuable thing, and wanting to support our police.
Right.
And I do. I've literal tattoos, related to our police officers on my skin. Our police are absolutely supported. What he's speaking to, and what I think that sort of angry group speaks to, is that the community buy-in and the community relations piece of police work today is something that they don't like. And the reason they don't like it has a lot to do with sort of a worldview, sort of a global political worldview of support the police, don't support the police. And it gets into deeper things about Black Lives Matter, et cetera. And what you have to understand is that our job with the police department is to serve the citizens.
Right.
And you can't serve the citizens if you don't build trust. And you can't build trust among the whole community if you are alienating the part of the community that feels like they are being unfairly targeted. So you have to build relationships. So Chief Duncan works incredibly hard. The thing that most marks her tenure as police chief in 10 years is that she works incredibly hard to build relationships in the community, right, with our churches, with community leaders, with HOAs and neighborhood associations, and schools and kids. She is out there doing that work, and it has proven results, dividends. Now, I think there's a couple other things that go along with this. I think our officers need everything they possibly can to be successful out on the street. One of those things is pay. Right. So one of the things my opponent says is that the median salary is $37,000 for a police officer in Salisbury. Just so you know, our newest police officers make over $50,000. So that's not factual. Our median salary for police officers is $67,000 right now per year. And that is base salary. That's not any benefits, that's not health care, that's not overtime, that's not anything else. That's just your base salary.
Yeah, I think it's listed as $44,000 on his website.
Yeah, and that's not...
On his campaign
so he updated it. It was 37 on his website. He updated it to 44 now. Great.
For median.
And that's still false.
I think starting was 37.
And that's still false. Yeah. So 44 is what we advertise as what you get paid if you go into the academy and you're a brand new officer.
Right.
But the reality is we've been paying over 50 because everybody we've been hiring with a bonus and an upgraded starting salary. So, so that's base starting salary, over $50,000, over $50,000. So that's just not true. And I was eating breakfast at one of the fire stations this weekend, just to interact with our firefighters. And one of our police officers, who used to be a firefighter, came in. And now, granted, the mayor's in the room, right?
Right.
But, just laughing and joking, they're giving him a hard time because, he's one of their brothers in blue. They're the brothers in red, right? Right. So it's a police-fire rivalry. And, he kind of laughed. He was like, at least my pay keeps increasing dramatically. And it has.
Right.
We have increased police pay significantly. We have the most competitive police pay plan on the Delmarva Peninsula other than Maryland State Police.
Right.
Sorry, other agencies, we want you all to succeed. We want your neighbors to be safe. We want your communities to be safe. But Salisbury has the best police pay plan on the Delmarva Peninsula, period. Right. And I'm not ashamed of that. We have put our money where it needs to be. We've also been able to upgrade uniforms and outer carrier vests and police vehicles and weapons and communication systems. Yep. You name it. The third piece, so it's trust, it's pay, and the third piece that I think is critical is that our officers have to have the best technology when it comes to enforcing the law.
Right.
So we've gone out and we have developed, we used a system called PredPol, Predictive Policing, but we've developed an artificial intelligence system that is producing almost now 90% accuracy, predicting crimes. Now, I don't know if you're a Minority Report fan. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Yeah, I do remember Minority Report very well.
I talk
Predicted
to
the future.
young people who don't remember that movie. I hate hearing that.
We can talk about this some other time. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Tom Cruise.
It's almost like that. It's crazy. It's almost like that in that it helps them identify, this is where I need to be. So this is where I'm going to deploy my assets in order to prevent a crime from happening.
Right.
And so these crimes that are happening in our community that are too many, sometimes, yes, they are violent crimes, sometimes they are domestic, sometimes they are strangers, sometimes they are robbery and theft and assault, they happen. But it's also worth noting that 75% of our crimes happen north of the bypass.
Right.
North of the bypass, and most of those are theft. It's shoplifting, and it's shoplifting from Walmart and our mall and Target, and it shouldn't happen. Many times the perpetrators are not from our community, but that contributes significantly to the numbers that we have to grapple with.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So the last question, I guess I'll make it this one, but infrastructure, right? Yeah. We know there's a lot of upgrades, there's a lot of projects downtown, and that creates frustration, whether it be I can't get around, it's taking me forever, or you say, wow, why is all this happening downtown and it's not happening in my little Salisbury neck of the woods, so to speak, whether it's your street or whatever. So I think there's a couple things to address with that for you as we kind of go into this race. The last week, the stretch here is, one, why are all the projects seemingly being done at the same time? Because that seems to be, the frustration with it all.
That's a fair question.
And two is, why is so much of it seemingly taking place downtown, even though I think you and I both know it's not just downtown. But sometimes it feels that way. Maybe it's just because of the nature of the project.
Certainly the accusation could have been 4 years ago that why is all of the work going on the west side?
Right.
We spent a $5.5 million Cody Cox rebuild to end flooding on the west side. We rebuilt Isabella Street, we rebuilt Delaware Avenue. We had all this construction going on the west
Right.
side. Certainly that could have been the accusation. Pretty soon here the accusation is going to be, why is all this construction happening in the Fitzwater Street area? You got $6 million going in the street in Fitzwater Street. But I do think, I love this because it gives us the opportunity to talk about, if you get your downtown wrong, you get your economy wrong.
Right.
And every American city has figured this out one way or the other. They've either figured out, whoops, we messed up by failing our downtown, and guess what? That's Salisbury. We failed our downtown for decades, generations. Or you get it right and your economy thrives. And we're getting it right. We've been getting it right for 5, 6 years. Before I was mayor, under Mayor Ireton, with the community here, there's been so much great thing, so many great things happening. Today, we watched the groundbreaking of the Vernon Powell building. 20 apartments, 10,000 square foot Main Street kids, and Doug Church was in there. Doug Church is a guy that owns the building that Pie and Main Street Coffee and Tony Week Studios, and 8 apartments above are in. And Doug said, you realize it was almost 20 years ago, I was on the Urban Salisbury Board of Directors, and we designed this project that you're building now, almost 20 years ago? I was like, yeah, and here we are executing it. And he was like, wow, I wish I was still here buying more buildings. He lives in D.C. now, still owns buildings here now. But the reality is we have an obligation to the citizens to take care of things. And we've got the oldest street in Salisbury, Main Street, 100-year-old pipes.
Right.
There's no other street in Salisbury with 100-year-old pipes. There's no other street like that. We're replacing the 100-year-old pipes that were constantly breaking, busting, leaking, into businesses because they've got tree roots growing in them, they're failing structurally, and we're replacing them. It wasn't necessarily my choice, but it's one I stand behind completely. Right. The choice of the business community, the downtown community, when they said, let's do this, I knew it had to be done. My predecessor knew it had to be done, and here we are. Now, I also want to point out on infrastructure, we have the smallest CIP we've ever had. We have the smallest debt associated with our projects that we've ever had. My opponent pointed out $107 million debt at the debate. Well, 70 million of that is state forgivable loans that they gave to us for the wastewater treatment plant. That's the state's obligation. The state built that thing.
Right.
And we thank them for it. We have now the best performing wastewater treatment plant after a 30-year debacle of being embarrassed by our wastewater treatment plant in Salisbury. We replaced that thing.
Right.
We're replacing pipes all over town and sidewalks in every neighborhood in this city. We're repaving streets. We got paving going on Riverside Drive today. Today, right now, it's happening as we speak. We got repaving going on Baptist Street and Poplar Hill. We got repaving coming to neighborhoods all fall, all spring long. So when I hear that, obviously I'm frustrated, but at the same time, I say, well, let's look at the proof. Let's look at the streets, look at the sidewalks. Watch us how we depoliticize. We took the politics out of paving. Used to be you yell loud enough, you get your street paved. It didn't need paving, didn't matter. You made a fuss, we got to pave your streets so you don't come and yell at us at the next council meeting. Today, we took the politics out of it. For 4 years, it's been only on the basis of how structurally deficient the road is. And we were also spending twice as much per year as they used to spend on paving. Now, that's thanks to our state government fully funding our highway user revenues, but we're getting there, and we're able to do more than we were ever able to do before.
I think maybe, just to kind of to tweak this a little bit, people see the roundabout and then they see maybe the bike lane, and they're thinking, why is the city doing these projects that maybe, I personally as a voter don't deem to be necessary? Do we really need a roundabout? Do we really need, this one bike lane on this one street, Waverly?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where people are kind of like, why are we doing all these projects, Main Street, for example?
Right.
And then we also have this, odd roundabout because they're not used to it, or this odd bike, why does that happen?
Yeah, well, we have an obligation, again, to listen to common sense. And so when the State Highway Administration sends letters for 30 years to the city of Salisbury and says, you have a traffic jam problem, you have a throughput problem at your main Riverside, Mill, Riverside, Carroll, and Camden intersection, and we can help you with it if you'd listen to us, if you'd listen to the engineers. And we recommend that you put a circle in, 120 to 150-foot circle, and hire an engineering firm, study it, come up with options. We'll work with you. We'll partner with you on the signalization of the Main and Mill and of the Mill and 50 intersections. And we finally listened. And you know why we listened? We didn't listen just because magically one day we said, oh yeah, we'll listen to State Highway Administration. No, we went out and we brought in over 2,500 citizens through a planning process and adopted the Downtown Master Plan, which has won state awards. It's won the 2018 Smart Growth Leadership, Sustainable Growth Leadership Award for this, from the state of Maryland, from Governor Hogan. I think the reason why we got that was not just the contents or the results. It was the process. It was that we went out to the public and we said, this is not going to be government's plan. This is not going to be a couple planners' plan. This is going to be your plan. Right. And so we engaged the public in an ongoing iterative process where they, time and again, showed up at community forums over 2.5 years and put together this plan. And you know what the most popular single element of the whole plan was? That roundabout.
Right.
That was the thing that people voted for most frequently as the #1 thing they wanted to see. I don't know why. I don't get it. But no matter what, that was it. That was the thing the people wanted. So, and if you read, online threads, there's as many people, if not more now, saying, thank God, as there were, as there were people originally who were saying, oh no, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I'm not the traffic engineering expert, but I know that the engineers said they wanted it, and we should do it. And then the public said, we want it too. We should do it. Now, I want to talk about Waverly for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, because I mean, it's
bike
funny.
Lanes, protected bike lanes, protected bikeways save lives, and that's all that's about. Now that's Vision Zero is state law, it's city law, it's going to be federal law. You have to design facilities to protect human life, because the mayor is the person who ultimately has to look in the eye of a parent and say, I didn't do enough to protect your child's life because people complained about wanting to drive faster.
Right.
I don't ever want to be in that position. The other thing is, when we build out a network of these things, that's when it functions. It doesn't function in piecemeal form. So when Carroll Street gets done, when South Boulevard gets done, the other ends of Waverly, it's going to make more sense. And when you have a connected network that people can safely move through, safely navigate through, they'll feel comfortable. There's a term that
so it's not just one street.
Absolutely not. And there's a term that the cyclists use, the interested but concerned. That makes up 60% of people out there. 60% of human beings, would say, yeah, I might.
I fall in that category 100%.
Me too.
Yeah,
I'm totally not a cyclist.
I'm worried about riding my bike because I don't want to get hit.
I'm not a cyclist. I'm the interested but concerned.
Right.
Sure, maybe I'd commute a mile to work or something on a bike occasionally.
Yeah.
But not if I feel like I'm going to get run over.
Right.
So give me a facility that gives me some sense of safety. And the last thing I'll say about this is you've got a facility that sends a signal to people that says, oh, this is protected space, but it also has physical barriers.
It does.
To try to physically protect you from the driver that's going down the road doing this, which there's a lot of these days. And it wasn't that long ago that we as a society realized that by creating this little 8-inch gap, this curb, all of a sudden we made the pedestrians a whole lot safer.
Yeah.
What a novel design. What a novel design improvement. And the same thing is being figured out with our protected bike lanes.
So if you had a mayoral nickname, would it be Jake Day, Common Sense Mayor, or Jake Day, Mayor of Data and Salisbury? I mean,
man.
Is it more common sense or is it more data?
I think it's about a vision of an aspirant community, right? It's about a vision of we can be better. Like we can do better. We can ascend to a higher place. We're on our way. Let's keep going there. Yeah. But I guess if you're only giving me the choice,
well, I'm giving you a choice. You got to pick
data.
Seems like
I'm a numbers guy. Give me the numbers. Don't tell me how it feels. Don't tell me how you think it is. Show me. Show me. Prove it to me.
Right. One last question, because I like to do maybe one that's a little bit lighter. But what is one underrated place in Salisbury that you really love, that resonates with you, that people don't talk a whole lot about?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
Make you think a little bit.
Well, look, Can I pick two?
You can pick two.
Can I pick a public
Maybe go
place?
with one first.
A public place and a private place?
That's fine.
Okay, private place first.
Okay.
All right, I got to give a shout out to Johnny's because Johnny's Sub Shop.
Yep.
I'm a sucker for Scrapple. I'm a sucker for good Scrapple.
So am I.
And you give me a good Scrapple sandwich.
Right.
I've never had a halfway good Scrapple sandwich at Johnny's. You're always going to get a good Scrapple sandwich. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. You stack some Scrapple and some American cheese on some toast, and I'm happy.
I got it. That's a good Delmarva answer. What was the other one?
That's my private.
Okay.
Public place. I just figured I should also give you a public place.
Okay.
I really like when I come out of my office and walk to my truck in the evening, and you can watch the sunset
Yeah.
over the drawbridge, it's really stunning. So you're looking down Church Street and 50, and the sunset over our drawbridge, and even if you were a little further, like if you were standing right on the Route 50
Yeah.
drawbridge, like, that is a beautiful view.
Yeah.
Beautiful view. And you know, you could probably get the same view with water, you know, a little further. I frequently am, you know, coming out of the office a little later in the evening, unfortunately. So that's where I get to see the sunset.
Yeah.
But you get the Old City Hall steeple. You get the St. Peter's Episcopal Church steeple. You know, you get this like kind of nice rhythm, and the hill that crests right there. It's a beautiful place.
Got it. Hey, we could talk about a lot. I know that. And
Yeah.
I know we didn't get to every topic, but thank you so
Brian, thank
much,
you.
and best of luck on Election Day.
I appreciate it.
All right, you got it.
Thank you.